This is the Live Well and Thrive podcast, hosted by Michael Torchia, health and wellness expert. It's time to shape up, America.
Hi, this is Mike Torchia. I want to welcome you to Live Well and Thrive. I have a very special guest, Donna Smith. Welcome to the show, Donna.
Thanks, Mike.
I was shared by a friend of yours, Allison Savage, all the accolades that you've accumulated over the years. I mean, being the first head of production for a major studio, and Schindler's List, Terminator, I mean, I can go on and on and on. For a woman, how hard was it to get to that point where you were appointed head of production for a major studio?
Hard. Very, very hard. Nothing was simple about it. It was in the, 80s? No, I was Universal in the 90s. But I started, Raging Bull was my very first movie, which is phenomenal to have done that. So in the 80s, I did 15 different movies, Raging Bull being the first one. I also did Terminator. And those kind of films started in like, who's the broad doing these butch movies? And that's the word that kind of got, that's how people talked. So I became very capable at handling big directors and big movies and big budgets. So that was the segue. And it was hard because there were nothing except guys, but I have to admit that the guys are the ones that always were hiring me.
Well, there must be something about your personality or your style that really resonated.
I was always told, you've got great people handling skills. I really don't know to this day what that means because we don't know when somebody says that. But that seemed to have been what paid off. As I'm not afraid to talk to, whomever the actor is. I'd have a real walk and talk with them, same with directors, the crew. I think you have to know how to hire and fire. And I'm very comfortable with that because it costs so much money every day to run a show. And if somebody's not holding their own, I let them go. I am capable of firing. And that was the thing that men always thought, oh, you can't fire anybody. You're not going to be able to do that. Not trying to prove a point, but it was just the work that had to get done. So I never had a fear of anybody on the set.
Now, before you became a head of production, what type of work were you doing with the studios or on productions in general?
No, I wasn't studio at all. I was independent. But my first movie, again, was production coordinator on Raging Bull. And that just fell into my lap. I'm a Minnesota girl. I had just moved here with my husband, and I had moved here from the Guthrie Theater. So I knew Shakespeare and Moliere and the classics. Nobody cares about that here. I didn't know that. But we moved to get away from the snow and be in the California sunbeams. Had no idea I would ever end up in film. Wasn't an aspiration. So then it just segued that I went to an unemployment agency and I said, what have you got? I know how to do Shakespeare. And they really could have cared less. And I was handed a little card. And she said, the only thing we have is an assistant filing clerk starting right away for somebody who's behind in her filing. And I said, oh, it's a little beneath what I had in mind, but okay, so I took it. And I went to the address. It was just a name and an address. It didn't mean anything. And then I got there, and this very mean lady said, sit over there and get my filing done. I said, okay. And so I was at a card table. So my life started at a card table with a big stack of purchase orders to file. And everything was about tires. So I thought it was a tire company, ordering a lot of tires. I didn't have any idea, and I couldn't talk to her. She really wanted to be left alone. So on the fifth day, I heard Rocky's voice. I didn't know who Rocky was by his real name. I just had seen the movie Rocky, as the world did. And I looked around. I said, oh, my God, there's Rocky. It was a very big thing. I thought, well, I don't know why Rocky is here just buying tires, I guess. Called my husband, said, I just saw Rocky. And, when you're new in town, it is a big deal to see somebody. So probably on the 8th day of my 10 days of working there, I saw Travis Bickle. And I called my husband, Gordon by name, and said, Gordon, I just saw Travis Bickle. What's he doing there? I said, I don't know. I guess they're just buying tires, but movie stars come here to buy tires. Turned out to be the production company named Chardoff Winkler. And at the time, that's a production company that had made Rocky. they made a lot of millions of bucks, and they were getting ready to do Rocky II and Raging Bull. So that's how I fell into it. The mean lady's boss came to me one day and said, "Get in here to a meeting and take notes." Everybody was mean and very brusque. And so I said, "Oh, okay." So I went in to take notes. And he told everybody, we have to do the reshoots of Rocky II, the ending. Sly hates the ending. And we have to redo the entire ending. 3,000 extras, and he rattled off everything. I'm writing it very fast. I'd never heard a lot of these words before. A DP, I mean, I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know what a lot of but I really was good at taking notes, so I took all those notes. And then he said, "This is Donna Smith. She'll be the production coordinator. This is Benji Rosenberg." Can I swear or not?
Yeah, of course you can.
Okay. And this is Benji Rosenberg. He's the first AD. Coordinate everything with them. Fucking meeting's over.
Wow.
And I thought, we don't talk that way in Minnesota. We don't say that word. And so that was my first exposure to what it was like, the Hollywood way of living and working and getting things done. And it has to be so fast, work fast, get it done, get it done. So all of a sudden, I was production coordinator. And I went to this guy and I said, "Sir, you said my name, and I don't know how to do anything." Isn't that a stupid thing to say? But I did. I said, "I don't know how to do anything." And he said, "No, I've been watching you. I think you can do it." And I said, "Okay, just chill. I can do it, no problem." So we go back out to the office. The mean lady, hands in arms, and said, "You just took my job." And I said, "Oh, I don't think so." And she said, "Yes, you did." She said, "But I'm going to let you off the hook. You're so green. I know you didn't go after it." And then the guy that she was working for came over with a wad of bills, took some money off of the wad of bills, said, "Fix up my Rolodex, and then you're out of here." And all of a sudden, that was my job. I got her job. And the next day, I'm looking, production coordinator. I didn't really, I had no idea. I had no briefing on anything. I had no schooling, no training, no mentor, no nothing. So I became production coordinator, and that was the very first thing, was the Rocky II reshoots. And it was big. You know, remember the ending on that movie. And I like Sly. I learned to call him Sly, which Sylvester was the strangest name I'd ever heard. So Sly was easier almost. And then from that, this mean guy whose name is Jim Brubaker, he's production manager. You know Brew, of course you do. Yeah, Brew passed now last year. I'm still sad about that.
I worked with Brew many years when I was doing movies with Universal.
Ah. Oh.
Born Identity, remember? Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And one hell of a guy.
Oh, I love Brew. He was my mentor. I mean, I became his protege.
Wow.
Is how I look at it, because that's who the mean guy was that I was referring to.
Brew was the mean guy.
Brew was the mean. I should have said that. I never even thought about that. Yeah. Brew was the mean guy. So he was the production manager on Raging Bull, and I became the production coordinator. So he tossed me the script after we finished with the Rocky II reshoots, and he said, "Here, it's my next movie. Why don't you do it with me?" You know how brusque he was.
Yeah.
And I said, "Is it a whole movie?" And he said, "Well, of course it's a whole movie." And I said, "Well, we just did a piece of one, so I don't know how this works." But that was Raging Bull. I never worked so hard in all my life. A year and a half on that movie, because, as you know, Bobby, well, we always call each other by names now, so Bobby De Niro had to gain weight. He insisted on that. We wanted to pad him, and nobody wanted to close down for 3 months. You just don't do that. But we closed down for 3 months while Bobby gained weight when he became Fat Jake. So it was a year and a half. We did it in we did all the fight scenes here, 8 fight scenes here in L.A. at Culver City. And then we went to New York for the New York sequences, and then we went to Florida for the Florida sequences. So Bobby had to be Fat Jake at the end of it in Miami, but he had to be body beautiful in all of those other scenes. He could never get out of character. He'd see you and he'd say, "Hey, Donna, how you doing? How you doing?" You know, he'd punch you out. And it was just like, it was wonderful. So it was a great first experience and a big, big movie to have hit for my very first full movie.
Well, he's an amazing guy, you know, De Niro. I mean, his work ethic. I mean, look what Cape Fear, what he did when he had.
I did Cape Fear.
Okay, so look how great shape he got for that too. I mean, he's the kind of person when he puts his mindset to it, he's all in.
He's in, absolutely in.
I mean, Sly too. Sly's
yeah.
Sly's been a dear friend for many years, and God bless his soul, he's still going.
I know.
Isn't it crazy? He's got the Tulsa King. Now it's a huge hit.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got the reality show with his family. That's also a huge hit.
Yeah. No, he's 100%. And nobody thought the guy would work one day in his life when he wrote Rocky and insisted that he came with it as director.
Yeah.
And everybody said, get out of here. You're not going to direct this movie. And then finally, here we go. Chardoff Winkler said, okay. And he made the hit of all of our lives. I mean, it really was just a runaway, wonderful production.
I mean, you were meant to be where you are. I mean, fate to bring you to that one little position to then evolve into what you have done and accomplished over these years is absolutely amazing. But there's something in the universe that fate brought you to that. It had to, because people study for years and never can get to the point like you have to work with those kind of talented people. It's incredible.
Yeah. And I didn't spend, my life in lower budget horror slasher films, and to start off that way was really phenomenal. But then how do you keep it going, Mike? I'm learning about Hollywood, and I learned very fast. But it was a matter of, will you ever work again? And you don't know that Raging Bull is going to become the best movie of the 80s, be in the Library of Congress. You make a movie, you don't have any idea what the result will be. And also, I have to say that at that era, everybody was on coke. And I'm a Minnesota girl. I had never had pot. I've never had a cup of coffee to this day. I just don't indulge. I don't have that kind of personality. I know that about myself. But everybody was coked up, and I had to handle that. Because Brubaker didn't want to handle it.
But was that at the office, or was it on the set, or where was it?
It was all over, kiddo. It really was, yeah. It just was. And Brew wasn't the kind. Brew would say, take care of that. Go nurture those people. Go get rid of this. Make the problem go away. So make the problem go away.
You're a little bit of a pit bull, huh? A bit of a pit bull when you had to lock shit down, cut it out, right?
Yeah, exactly. I just took care of it, and I did a couple of things, and then Brubaker, I love that you know him so well, but he would come to me and say, you're not allowed to do that. You don't have the authority to do that. And I said, well, it took care of the problem, Brew. It shut it down. We don't have the problem anymore. Yeah. So what's the beef? And then he'd just sputter and walk away. And then after Raging Bull, I did, sometimes I forget the name of the movies, with Brubaker again. That's why I'm trying to remember it.
You did, was it Shawshank Redemption?
No, it was with Bobby De Niro again, and Robert Duvall. And what the heck is the name of the movie? Ulu Grossbard was the director. Nobody knew Ulu, and it was kind of, who's this guy as a director? Of all things, I knew Ulu from theater. He came from classical theater also. So what's the movie? Well, we'll have to look it up.
Yeah, we'll have to.
I'm sure somebody's looking it up now. But Bobby was a priest, and Duvall was the detective. And essentially, as I remember, what happened is because Bobby was still losing weight from Raging Bull, and he was going to be the detective. They switched roles, essentially, because Bobby still had to get rid of the flab. So he was wearing a priest cassock the whole time. Yeah, so he had on the priest gown, if you will. And, the detective suit wasn't looking as good at that time.
Yeah, I hear you.
So it was wonderful. So I did that with Brubaker right after. And then I did another one with Brubaker right after that. So we did 3 in a row. So I did keep working. And then I was invited to be production manager on a picture. And this is a sad part, because Brubaker, I talked to you kind of differently, I guess, but I told Brew, I said, Brew, I've been asked to be production manager on a movie. It's a Canadian movie, and we're going to shoot it in Beaver Dam, Wisconsin. And he said, you can't be a production manager. I'm a production manager. You're not a production. I said, Brew, you should be proud of me. I'm your protege. It's good. And he threw an ashtray at me.
Oh.
And I had to duck. It was a glass ashtray. And I ducked. And I was so hurt. I mean, my feelings were so hurt. So instead of being proud of me becoming production manager, he was pissed off. But
a little bit of a temper.
That's his kind of drill. We became great, great friends all of the rest of his life. I had the pleasure, can you imagine, I introduced him to Marcy, his wife.
Aww.
They both came as singles to my husband's and my 25th wedding anniversary. We lived in Toluca Lake. And I told Marcy, there's somebody I want you to meet. And I told Brew, there's somebody I want you to meet. They left together to go have a cup of coffee, and then they married. And they married on, Brubaker said, hey, what day did you guys get married on? Because I got to remember my anniversary, because he knew he'd get in trouble if he didn't. And so I told him, so they were married on our same date.
Well, you know, one of Bruce's very dear friends was Jim Honore.
Yes.
From Sony TriStar. And Jimmy and I are like family. So he was the one that introduced me to Bruce. So right away we bonded. Because, you know, if you know Jim Honore, then Bruce, you got to be okay.
Oh, yeah. And
I'd go up to his office at Universal, and we would just talk for so long. And people that kept, knocking on the door to come in. I don't want hold all calls. I don't want any visitors. So he was so great when I was there. He wasn't talking to anybody. He just wanted to talk.
I get you.
He was wonderful, just a wonderful, engaging person.
He's a very complicated guy.
Yeah, I remember before he actually passed away, and this after he's retired, he said, Mike, can you help out my kid? You seem to know everybody in town. Because his son had created or invested in some kind of company where you cut the hair and then you send it off to this lab, and it evaluates what minerals and vitamins and things that you're missing in your diet, and does a custom vitamin formula. And I just remember Brew met me over at Giuseppe Franco's in Beverly Hills.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And
I'm there with his son, and he goes, Mikey, come in here. And he goes, we just want you to clip your hair. And I said, I just got a haircut. He goes, no, just a little bit. Giuseppe's going to cut it. So, of course, it was really tight, and I was doing some promotion for some fitness products. So Giuseppe goes in the back, and I can hear him saying something. I guess apparently my hair was really short. So he clipped it, and he put it in a Ziploc, and Bruce said, oh, yeah, so my son's going to send it out, and then we're going to, probably you don't need anything. You're so healthy the way you eat. So I go home, and the girl I was dating at the time, she goes, what did you do back in your head? There was like a patch of on the back of my head. But that's why Brew was laughing. Everybody was laughing. Giuseppe was laughing. But I didn't know what they did in the back.
It's like having a sign on your back.
But they laughed, and then I called him up. Well, what did you do? He goes, it's like, it'll grow back, Mikey.
Yeah,
Where at?
Don't worry about it.
But fond moments. And so when you talk about him, it just touches me.
I
because
hear you.
I knew what he was like, his energy, just his presence when he's in the room. And he was always loyal. I have to say, he was always loyal.
The beauty of it, yeah.
So, it's relationships.
Yes.
It's
he
not
was
just your
mad
talent.
at me, when I tell that story through the ash, but he was proud.
Yeah.
That it was a double thing with him. He didn't want me to leave because I did a lot of his work, and we had really worked up a system on how we worked together. And, he lost a good asset, but he was really proud, and I knew that.
It's amazing. So, just if for other women that are watching this show and they have hopes and dreams of being in an industry, not necessarily head of production or be producing or other aspects of filmmaking, what would you suggest they do to break into the business? If it's education, I understand, but what do you think is the best way, especially the way it is now today?
You just can't be shy. But you can't be too pushy. It's that awful middle line of everybody in the business is in the business. They don't want you in. There's a bit of that elbow keeping you out. But there are also mentors. Some people, I'm really one of them. All I want to do is see women get work. And I've spent my whole career hiring women as often as possible. I give a lot of speeches, Mike, and people always ask, who do you thank for helping you with your career? And my answer is, I have to thank all men. There was not one single woman that I could thank along the way. I met Kathleen Kennedy later when I became studio head. That was very different. But in those first days, I made 15 independent movies before I became studio, which is really pretty rapid. But you just go from one movie to the next. You take your network with you, good people. You got to weed out the bad people, if you will. And what you do, my dears, you just got to have perseverance. My big word is persnickety. I'm a very persnickety person. I know that about myself. It's my license plate. So I would never compromise those values, that everything had to be very precise and done right or wasn't right. If it's not right, it's wrong. So that was my thing. I always kept persnickety as my word. And perseverance is probably the best word for anybody new to capture. And just realize you got to keep knocking on doors, you got to keep sending out the resumes, and everybody you meet hopefully is going to be a network person along the way. But you have to be able to understand that. I'm kind of talking in circles here, and it's not a clear, because there's no clear way to go.
Yeah, but your message is clear, because here's the thing is, because you know how this industry is. You could be at the cleaner, you could be at the store like Bristol Farms or Whole Foods, or you could be in the bank, and you never know who's in front of you and behind you. I always start conversations while we're waiting, and I've actually conducted a lot of business because I was just a friendly guy, had a great smile, figured, well, we got to wait, why don't we talk, right?
Yeah.
And people were just like, okay, oh, you're from New York. And then all of a sudden we'd start chatting. But I always was engaging, very polite. If someone was coming in, I'd open the door for them. If it's a woman, I'd open the door. I'm just engaging, and I like people. But I find for me was similar like you, is I kind of stepped in a situation, but when I got in the room, I just loved talking to people, getting to know people. I always respected their time and their place. And I think that skill set, along with your drive and ambition and toughness, because to be around all those men and not get intimidated says a lot about your personality and who you are.
Well, I think it's true. I'm a Capricorn, so I blame a lot of it on that. We're mean, we're aggressive, don't try to fool us because it's not going to work, and we just get things done. So.
And it's refreshing to hear that you've worked with all these men that help give you these incredible breaks, opposed to many other women have complained that the men have pulled them down, and you feel they've added value to your career.
Yeah, very definitely.
That's a beautiful thing to hear.
There were 5 women at the time that were production managers or trying to be production managers, basically still in non-union and independent films. And every time I got a job, which I just always did, they'd come to me and say, "Where did you get that job? You get everything." And they'd want to hassle me about it. I say, "Hey, look at your attitude. That might have something to do with it." Because they had anger, they had resentment, they had, I don't even like the word jealousy, but they couldn't figure out why they didn't get the job instead. So I remember that it wasn't important to me at the time, but now I've built a career, and that it's an over career. I get to talk about it. Now I get to talk the truth about a lot of things. I couldn't say things for a long time, or I wouldn't.
Are you planning to write a book?
People have really asked me to do, especially after Waterworld. Everybody wanted me to write a book after Waterworld because it was such a
that was a mess, huh?
break. Oh, la 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 la.
Oh.
It was just horrible. Every bloody day was reported to the press, and people in Des Moines, Iowa, are reading, "Oh, they spent another $1,800,000 yesterday." I mean, how do people in the Midwest even know or care? But we had a leak. I found out who the leak was and got rid of that leak, obviously, but still, the paper picked up on that show every day. It was the first movie over $100 million. But when it landed on my desk at Universal, I looked at the budget and I said, "Oh, there's no such thing as a $99 million budget. So this budget sucks. This is not a right budget. It's not real. There's no such thing as a 99. So you want it to hit under $100 million." And it went way over. So it had a lot of press. So I understand about writing books, and I thought about it. And then I thought, well, I work in this industry. I don't want to blow the whistle and say a lot of things about what really happened.
Now, you know what? I've been approached so many times with publishers to write a book, and I won't do it. Not where it talks about personal relationships with actors, because that's private.
Well, that's where I'm coming from. I would certainly write a book about career and
career,
inspiration type thing.
But publishers.
But I'm not going to get into people's things.
No, I can't go. I can't go there. I've always respected my clients' confidentiality and respect them. And there's things we all did together, having fun and maybe stupid things. But I'm never going to share those things because those are personal stories to me.
That's why we keep working, Mike.
Right.
I would have stopped working years ago if I'm still working now. So,
So what actually are you doing right now?
Right now, there's 2 very big items. One is called Antara. People don't know about movies until they're out, of course. but we're going to be doing it in Saudi Arabia.
Oh my God.
There's a new city that they're building in Saudi Arabia. It's called Neom, Neom. And it's a long city that everybody refers to that knows about it, that it's a long city instead of a kind of a circular city. But it's by the Red Sea, and it's Saudi Arabia. And this script is about a Bedouin orphan who became the leader and the hero of the country. A true story based on true. It's 400 years old, so it's a lot of drama with it all. But we're really in that part of the world, so it's going to be a hard one to do.
That was fully funded by the Middle East?
Partially, not fully, but partially, yeah.
And are any name actors attached yet?
Attached, I can't say that because until they're attached, they're not attached. They got to have that bloody signature on the paper. So, but it's one of your friends that you mentioned earlier, JD, that's who we're going after.
Okay, great.
And then I have another one in Japan, a really big one. Everybody kind of knows about it. Yasuke is what it's called. It's
yeah, I've heard about that.
Yeah, it's already a game, and people are very familiar with it. So it's a big one. It's a Sony. It'll be a Sony distribution.
Sounds like you have a fun life.
Oh, I really do, kiddo.
Get to travel and work with talented people.
I've got Cannes coming up next week, and and then I have to go to Paris after Cannes. Of course, one has to do that. So yeah, I have a big life. My husband passed. That was the big void in my life. So I've been on my own for a lot of years now. But you know what? I can do it. I can take care of myself, and that part I'm glad about.
And I'm sure he's up there smiling over you, right?
He's up on his little cloud doing a tap dance about, look at you, silly girl, look what you've done, yeah.
I am so proud of you. You're my new friend.
Oh.
And really, because we have that common bond between Allison and Bruce, so let's definitely stay in touch. And I want to thank you for coming on the show and sharing all your wisdom and your story, your journey of how you become such a powerful, successful woman. But you have such a kind, sweet energy.
Oh, thank you.
For a woman that's in such a high-powered position, you're just so grounded. It's a beautiful thing to say.
I'm a Minnesota girl. I think that's it. Keep your values, the way you've been raised. Don't go Hollywood necessarily.
I hear you. Thank you.
Oh, it was fun. Thanks, Mike.
Welcome. Well, thanks for watching another episode of Live Well and Thrive. And please subscribe. We need your support. Thank you. That was fun.
That was a podcast. Yay.
See? We weren't talking about fitness.